Hello? Hello? Hey, I know you are doing great. And the animatronics aren't really under your responsibility, but I need to tell you something just in case, alright? The characters like to move around at night when nobody is here. They like to roam around and be themselves. There isn't a concern for your safety here. Just one thing.
What's good, everybody? Dragon Inferno here. Welcome to our first ever guest star interview with Patrick Hickey Jr., who is the voice of Phone Guy from Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit. Does way more than just voice acting, so sit back, relax. I hope you enjoy the interview, and we get to learn a little bit more about Patrick Hickey Jr. and his journey to becoming Phone Guy from Five Nights at Freddy's. I guess first question would be Legacy Comics. So you're the founder, editor-in-chief of that company as well. Tons of comics on there. Do you have a particular favorite one on there? Do you want to elaborate on the company itself as a whole too?
Sure. I could do all that. You're recording now?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So I started. Oh, it's like kind of a long story, but so basically what happened was when I was 18. I'm 41 now, so that's why I said it's kind of a long story.
Still young.
I wrote a comic book called Condry, and I was a journalism student in college at the time. And my professor at the time was like, listen, you're a really good journalist. Why don't you kind of like take a step back from the comic book stuff? It's like impossible to make a living doing that stuff and just be a journalist. You're really good. You have a ton of potential. So I did that. And then like every 2 or 3 years, I was like, I really still want to be a comic book writer. Like, really bad. And
yeah, just like kept eating at you the whole time too.
Oh yeah. And everyone that I would show the story for Condry was like, dude, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Just couldn't find the right artist. So in the meantime, I get a associate's, a bachelor's, and a master's degree in journalism. I am writing books on video game history. I'm doing voiceover. I'm an editor at NBC. I'm writing for magazines. I'm a college professor. And I still haven't done anything with this comic. And then I would say probably around August of 2019, I met Kieran X Quinn, and I showed him the script for Condry. He loved it. By like December of 2019, we were finished, and then right after that, COVID. So no comic book companies were biting on new creations, so to speak. And then what happened was, I would say probably around January of 2021, I got an opportunity to interview Mark Burnell, who's the owner of Lesser Known Comics.
Oh, nice.
And this is because I'm the editor-in-chief of ReviewFix.com, which is a daily updated entertainment website and stuff. I've interviewed tons of people, like it's insane.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that next right after.
And so he reached out to me. He's like, I would love for you to interview me. Like, I'm trying to build some buzz for the comic book company and stuff. So do an interview with him, gets really good traffic, and then at the end he's like, if there's ever anything that I could do for you. And the thing is, I've had people tell me for 20 years, if there's ever anything that I could do for you, and I don't usually cash in those favors and stuff like that. It's just like, it's my job to interview you, so I did my job. We're all good. And then get off the phone, and I'm just like, you're sitting on a script. You got a great artist, and we had an ash can done, which is like a 6-page, like teaser, like short story version.
Yeah, it's like a pilot version.
Yeah, absolutely. So I email him, and I'm like, Mark, take a look at this. Let me know what you think. Like 20 minutes later, he's like, can we sign you? And I'm like, yeah. So I negotiated mine and Kieran's first contract. And we were like off to the races for like the first 8 months. We did Condry 0, 1, 2, and 3 with Lesser Known Comics, and Mark Burnell made me like I was like in charge of like social media promotion, and I was writing Condry. I learned a lot about like the way a comic book company works, or maybe how it shouldn't work, and by August of that year, I was like, I have to start my own comic book company. Because I'm like, this guy is making like a ton of mistakes. This isn't going to be like
Yeah, you get to learn like all the ins and outs of it, and then you get your own input into it. So,
Absolutely.
and then you would have absolute control over it. You could have it set up the way that you would like to have
You
it set
got
up.
it. And the thing was, like, I was writing Condry at the time, and Condry was like our #1 book at Lesser Known Comics. If anyone tells you any different, they're completely out of their mind. Um, we did Free Comic Book Day at Bulletproof Comics, which is like the biggest comic book store in Brooklyn that year. I had the editor-in-chief of Heavy Metal magazine there, like interviewing us and stuff like that, and I was just like, I could do this all myself. So by August, I filed an LLC with another guy, John Svedesi, who started the company with me. He's no longer with us, and we went to Kickstarter in November, like November 5th of 2021, because I did the last issue of Condry 3 was supposed to be a Halloween issue. So as soon as that came out, like 2 days after it came out, I spoke to Mark and I was like, listen, I'm done, you know. And he was like, okay. He wasn't happy about it, but we went our separate ways and stuff. And the Kickstarter was funded in 3 hours. It ended up being 300% funded, and
That's awesome.
it was great. It was affirming, because like whenever you work for somebody else, you're kind of like, could I do it by myself? And I knew that I could. But the thing was, the reason why I wanted to leave Lesser Known Comics is because I had shown them Sarita, Kroom, The Job, all these other books that I wanted to do. And they were basically like, no, like, continue to get, like, because one of the things that I was really good at is getting other people and myself on podcasts. And building buzz for the brand and stuff like that. And he was just like, why don't you just continue to do that and just write Condry? And my thing is, like, one of my heroes in comics is Brian Michael Bendis, who, he was writing 3 or 4 books a month at one time. Like, the guy's a complete workhorse. And I was just like, I want to be able to say that, like, I tried my hardest, and that, like, I was writing at least a comic a month. Like, I want to take a real stab at this comic book thing, and they weren't going to allow me to do that. So started Legacy, we're off to the races, and then I would say probably a couple of months in, I just realized that because I started it with, like I told you, with John Svedesi, and I just realized I don't think I play completely well with others sometimes.
But it gave you a nice start, and it gave you that time to kind of see and how the whole operation works out. And then once the time was right, then that was your time to branch out, kind of spread your wings and take the project for yourself. Though.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that takes huge initiative to actually start from that, learn from that, and then just hit the ground running and start your own business that way.
Oh yeah, and it was scary as hell. It was a couple of days before my 39th birthday, and I just had a long conversation with John, and he handled it like a pro. He knew, because it was like I was supposed to be in charge of the writing side of things and be like kind of like the Stan Lee, and he was going to be like the Jack Kirby, like the behind the scenes, the artist, and da da da. But like it was just like everyone, like whenever we would have a meeting, it was supposed to be like me and John at like the head of the table, and everyone would just go and look at me and be like, all right. And it was like John sensed it, everyone else sensed it, and then it was just like, okay, so do you want to stay here at like a lesser role? Because there's not enough room. There's like totally like not enough room on the top, and he chose to leave, which was great. And then since then, I mean, we've been crushing it. We've done books for off-Broadway plays. We've done books for 2 documentaries. We got a script from the Bram Stoker Foundation, a 250-year-old like unpublished notes from Bram Stoker, and we did a Dracula book from it. Like we've done a really good job of creating our own stories and then doing licensed projects for other people. I'm like super proud of all of the stuff that we've done in 2 years, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that like I'm able to leverage my communications in the video game industry, film, music, because I've been a journalist for 20 years, and just like kind of create something that's like really cool and special. Like I was talking to one of my artists today, Steve Conjay, and he was just like, you ever sit in like your man cave and just be like, oh my god, I can't believe like all the stuff that I've done? And I'm like, no. And he's like, stop. And I'm like, no. I'm like, because if I sit back for like 2 seconds and go, oh, look at all the cool stuff that I've done, then I can't do the next thing, And he's like, you're terrible. He's like, I was just in my closet looking at like all the, cause he's done a lot of stuff for us, Steve, in the past like 2.5 years. He's like, I was just looking at all the stuff I've done for Legacy in the past 2.5 years, and I'm like really proud. And I'm like, I'm not saying that I'm not proud of everything that I've done with Legacy. I'm just saying I'm not gonna let like the journey so far define me. Like I just released I announced a new book today. We're gonna be announcing another book in like 3 weeks. So I just want to keep going, you know. So
You got that workaholic mentality and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Always looking at the next project, always looking at the next step and stuff
Mhm.
like that. Make sure you give you some time to relax every now and then, just so
Sure.
you don't get burnout.
Oh,
But yeah, no, totally understand that.
people tell me all the time, like one of my best friends is always like, be careful, you're gonna burn out. And I'm like, bro, you know me since I'm 14. Like, if I was gonna burn out, I would have burnt out a long time ago, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like I've worked basically 7 days a week since I'm like 14 years old. So it's like
Coffee works wonders. I mean.
coffee works wonders. I just had to switch to decaf a couple weeks ago. Started getting very, you know,
Yeah, I still push myself through that every now and then.
yeah, once in a while, you know, like I think I've only had like 2 caffeinated coffees in the past 3 weeks. I feel like 1,000 times better. So I've like
Yeah,
realized
I'm on my 3rd or 4th today, so I
Nice.
can't say the same.
I,
But
yeah, I always thought I needed it, but
Yeah.
it's like the last 3 weeks have proven that I'm just naturally like this. So yeah, but that's the story of Legacy. Just I was this 18-year-old kid that wanted to work on a comic,
Yeah, no worries,
and
you're
then just found a way to eventually make it possible, and now I run a comic book company. So it's been
that was
been
really,
pretty
really
wild.
awesome.
Yeah.
Is there a particular comic that you like really dove into like head first that kind of got you like motivated into doing comics?
I love to read. I've been a reader. I've been reading since I'm about like 3-4 years old, and I remember my dad used to pick up these really like crusty newsstand copies of like Spectacular Spider-Man, and
Yeah.
I remember one day I was like 3. This was like 1986, 1980, you know, almost 1987 and stuff, and he's just like, you like that comic? And I was like, yeah, Spidey, blah, blah, blah. And I was giving him the whole story, and he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, so you're not just looking at the pictures? I'm like, no, I'm reading it. And he's just like, read it to me. And I started reading it to him. He's like to my mom. He's like, Misty, he's reading. You know, so it was like before kindergarten. I was already reading, and I love the comic book medium. It's kind of like akin to those old school radio serials where you would have to like tune in every day for like the next part of the story. I love
sure.
reading a great comic and knowing, crap, I'm gonna have to wait next month for the continuation of the story. So
Like that anime mentality too, where you got an episode once a
Absolutely.
week and
Yep.
so on and so forth.
Yep. Spider-Man, definitely my guy. But I love Ghost Rider. I love Punisher. I love Wolverine. I love Daredevil. Huge influence on me. Again,
That's awesome.
Brian Michael Bendis, Frank Miller. Yeah, I love to read.
I'll have to send you a picture of my dog. His harness is Spider-Man.
Love it.
So
Yeah.
we originally got him a Darth Vader one. It wore out, but then we got him a Spider-Man one right after. that.
Love
So
it.
He's our little spider pup. So our friendly neighborhood spider pup walks
I
around all the
love
time.
it.
People
I saw
love
him
it.
on
So
your TikTok yesterday. Or
yeah,
today.
no,
Yeah.
he's my pride and joy. So
Yeah.
he actually turns 7 next month. now,
Nice.
so.
That's awesome. Yeah, dogs are great. I have a dog. He's upstairs. He's chilling out.
Yeah, mine, he keeps nudging at the door right now, so I might break him in. At some
Yeah,
point
that's
around
fine.
here.
That's fine.
One little side note I wanted to talk about was so you're the director of journalism at, was it, Kingsborough, Community College in
Kingsborough
Brooklyn?
Community College in Brooklyn, New York. Yeah, I've been the director of the program for 3 years, but I've taught there for 18. So yeah.
Nice. How do you enjoy teaching?
Oh, I love teaching. I went there.
Yeah.
And then like 2 weeks after I graduated from there and I started my undergrad, I got hired as a writing coach, because I was editor-in-chief of the college newspaper, and I ran that place. Like I used
That's
to,
awesome.
yeah, I used to sleep on campus. You're not supposed to.
Yeah, no,
I-
that's kind of looked down upon.
Yeah, I would have a key. I had a key to my office. Like oh man, I loved that place when I was there. It was literally like my Hogwarts. And when I graduated, I interviewed for a job like right before I graduated. I got it. So then I was covering minor league baseball for a local newspaper, and working part-time there, and then going to Brooklyn College for my undergrad, and then just stayed there for another 2 years when I got my bachelor's and interviewed for a part-time teaching position. Got that, and then I would say probably like a year and a half later I got hired full-time. So it's been a fun ride. So to be 41 and to be a full-time college professor and to have tenure and all that is pretty wild. So
Be able to do all the things that you've done and everything that I've read in that time too is absolutely,
yeah,
it's literally astounding.
thank you. It just
No problem.
It's just no one's ever given me anything in my entire life. I'm the first college graduate in my family. I'm the first person in my family that has never been addicted to drugs and alcohol. Like, I'm completely straight edge. I've never drank.
Congratulations
I've
on
never
that.
smoked. Thank you. I didn't have a choice, you know. I have a twin brother that's like Kramer from Seinfeld. He's a madman, and I've always been Jerry. You know, I've always been like the even keel, you know. But
Not as much as the voice tone, but yeah, no.
yeah. I don't want to be a pirate.
So I did some snooping since I saw that you were a college professor and stuff, and I did look at your actual professor grade and stuff like on
Nice.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were a whopping 4.9 out of 5.
Yeah.
I did not see one single review under 2.
It's one
So,
person.
and
one
I think they
person
were
my
just
first
sleeping.
semester.
So.
There's one student on there she graded me my first semester, and she's the reason why I'm not like a perfect 5 out of 5, you know. But yeah, and she was one of those people where she was just like I forgot exactly what she said to me, but it was something along the lines of like if I cheat and you don't catch me, is that okay? And I'm just like,
Oh my god.
yeah, it was just like one of those things where I was just like, come on, you know. And
Yeah.
I worked her like super hard, and she got a B+ that she deserved, and she was pissed off about it. So that was her way of, you know, getting back at me. But that's okay.
I mean, hey, still B+, you know.
Absolutely.
Still good, solid grade.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
after that statement, that definitely very generous grade.
I'm just like, as a professor, like the thing is like I tell a lot of young professors that the closer you are to yourself in the class, the more you'll get out of the students. But it's like you can't be 100% because there has to be that layer of decorum and respect and things like that. So it's just like I try and get so close to myself when I teach, and I think my students get something out of it. And then the thing is too, like the way I'm dressed right now, I'm wearing a Legacy shirt and my my Ed Piskor tribute hat, my Pittsburgh Pirates hat. That's the way I dress in class. Like I wear my Punisher shirt, I wear hockey jerseys and stuff.
That's awesome.
And the first day I come into the class, they're like, "Are you a student?" And I'm like, "No, I've taught here for 18 years." And they're like, "No, you're like 30 something." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not," you know. And then after I start talking and telling them what I've done and what I want from them, then it's just like they get it immediately, you know.
Yeah.
So I've been really lucky. I've taught at a couple of other colleges too, part time. I've taught at John Jay. I've taught at Brooklyn College. I've taught this could be a comic book one day. I taught a week at a Jewish elementary all-boy elementary school. That was fun. So I definitely have like some teaching. Like I've done a whole bunch of teaching, and I super enjoy it.
That's really awesome. Yeah, no, I definitely could have used a professor like you. Mine, over half the class either got expelled, banned, or just kicked out in general.
Wow.
It was definitely a tough course. I was one of the lucky few that did graduate from that course, but yeah, no, we lost many students in my class.
It's hard, especially now too. Like COVID really like lowered the standards educationally, and the cheating is like off the rails, you know.
I couldn't even imagine nowadays. I was gonna say I graduated college was what 2014.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I could not imagine school nowadays for that.
Oh yeah. It's like you read something and you're like, that's AI, you know, or you're reading something and you're just like, that's totally copied and pasted, you know.
Yeah, you gotta do your research, but I mean, if you're gonna at the very least copy and paste, like put it into your own way. Very least, change it up, read through it. It doesn't take that much time.
Absolutely.
But we're gonna start slowly transitioning to the games. But I
Sure.
do love all the book series that you do have the minds behind, like all the games, the adventure games, sports games.
Mm-hmm.
What we got? Shooter games, Sega Genesis, and then PlayStation 1 and 2.
Yeah.
The ones that kind of caught my attention were the PlayStation 1 and 2. I was reading through those a little bit, and
Uh-huh.
I saw Spyro on there. So Spyro was actually my first video game ever.
Wow.
Absolutely love that franchise. I need a fourth one, a fourth official title.
I know. Oh.
And then on the PlayStation 2 one, I did see Sly Cooper on there, which
Mm-hmm.
another beloved franchise. I
Those guys
absolutely loved it.
so good to me too. Both of those two chapters alone, the devs that I spoke to were just like fantastic. And
Yeah.
I love being able to go behind the scenes and like if you've ever read any of the books, they're basically like 3,000-4,000 word chapters. It's like a mini like ESPN 30 for 30 like behind the
Yeah.
scenes of like how the games were developed. It's like fun, just like fun anecdotes too, how like the animations from Sly Cooper, like his tail, are actually reused in oh my god, what was the game that they came out, the Japanese samurai game that they came out with a couple of years ago? The same developer,
What was it?
Toshima.
Well, Sly Cooper was what? Ghost of Tsushima?
Ghost of Tsushima.
Ghost of Tsushima? Yeah.
Yes. So the same animations for his armor in the wind.
Yeah.
It's the same animation as Sly Cooper's
Oh, that's
tail.
really dope.
So it's just like I love those little tidbits where you start finding out things about games, and then like the
It's
work.
just the attention to detail for all this stuff
Yeah.
too. It's the same thing with like
Yeah.
Rockstar when it came out. Red Dead Redemption 2 is probably one of my all-time favorite games.
Mhm.
It just the amount of details, the time they took,
Yep.
and just everything came out.
Yep.
Like just either excellent or perfect. I mean,
Mhm.
I've never seen a game go so hard in detail.
Absolutely. I just love speaking to developers and getting that behind the scenes stuff because man, I'm the type of person where I'll go in GameStop and I always like befriend the cashiers and I talk to them and then they find out who I am and I try and educate them a little bit because sometimes I'll hear people say things in GameStop that I'm just like, you have zero clue what you're talking about. They're like, oh, I don't know why the game sucks now. It was so good 3 years ago. And I'm like, because it's a completely different development team. The only difference is like it has the same name, but there's a different producer, there's a different director, there's a different gameplay tuner, there's a different this, a different that, and
Whole different studio. I mean,
And-
it's the same thing with like after Sly Cooper 3, after Sucker Punch stopped doing the game.
yep,
4 was okay, but it just didn't have like the heart and soul of the original first 3. So
absolutely.
same thing with Spyro too. On top of
Mhm.
that,
Spyro. I mean, I could name so many games where like the first one or the second one or the third one was just something really special, and then you find out there's like these like little pieces that are not prevalent, and usually those little pieces are people, and I love to speak to those people. So that's yeah, those books opened up a whole like avenue for me because like before that at one point I was like the most read video game writer on examiner.com before they closed down, and I did a ton of video game stuff for NBC. But then I just got to the point where I was just like, my wife was pregnant with my first child, my daughter, my Josie, my everything, and I'm like, I need to write a book now before she's born because I don't know how much time I'm gonna have when I become a dad. And I wrote the first book, and then what happened was after I wrote the first book, all these developers got back to me that didn't answer me, and I'm like, oh my god, I have enough for a second book. And then I pitched the second book, and my publisher said no, and I'm like, why? And they're like, because they're like, in a very nice way, they're like,
Yeah.
they're like, stupid, you have like 25 interviews here, and one can be a shooter book, one could be an adventure book, and one could be one could be one could be an adventure, one could be sports, one could be shooter. So instead of me getting a sequel, they signed me to a 3-book deal.
that's awesome.
So that was like, oh my god. And then after I did those 3, they're like, oh, you have anything else for us? And then I did the Genesis book during COVID, the beginning of COVID, and then they were like, you want to do like 2 more? And then I'm like, let's do PlayStation and PlayStation 2. So I basically wrote 6 massive video game books in like 7 years. Oh no, in like 5 years, and they were released over 7 years. So
Yeah, so basically a book a year at that point.
for 6 years, and it takes a lot out of you. But then the thing is too, I really oversaturated the market in the fact that like I get messages from people, like I sold the PlayStation 2 book today, and they were like, I can't wait to read this, and if you ever do more, let me know. And I'm like, there's 6 other books, like So it's just like, instead of me, because I have people all the time that are like, when are you gonna write the next one? And I'm just like, there's probably like 300 or 400 people that have read all 6, but then
Yeah.
there's probably like thousands of people that have only read like 1 and have no idea that a sequel and a third and a fourth and a fifth and sixth are out, and that's partially my publisher to blame. But it's also mine to blame too, because like, I focus a lot on promoting Legacy and promoting the voice acting stuff over the video game books right now. But those,
You got a lot going on. You got a lot
yeah,
going on.
absolutely. So, but I love those books. I love what I was able to accomplish with them. I definitely want to go back to them eventually, someday. And there's Legacy Comics probably doesn't exist because of it, and in a weird way, I maybe don't get into voice acting the way that I did without the Minds Behind the Games books. So
Really awesome. Definitely open up some opportunities. Too.
yeah, absolutely.
And then this has kind of been my favorite segment to kind of like jump into. So we're getting into the voice acting and stuff like that. But Mega Cat Studios. So you were in Into the Pit for FNAF, and you were phone guy.
Yeah.
And then you were one other part in there. I forget
Yeah.
which part
Yeah,
that
I was the PA announcer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so every time, I'm pretty sure it's in the beginning of the game. As soon as you get into Freddy's the first time, it's like, "Welcome to Fazbear's Pizzeria, where magic comes to life," and blah, blah, like that whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't stick your hands in the animatronics, or you may lose them again. So it's just like stupid stuff like that. I've been working with the Mega Cat people for about 5 years. I did World Championship Boxing Manager 2 for them. I did like 35 voices in that game. In WrestleQuest, I did like over 60 voices.
Yeah. You said you were going for the Guinness World Book of Records.
Well, I mean, I got it.
You good? All right.
Well,
hey, let's go.
Well, the thing is, it's just like it's not authenticated, because there's like all of these like hoops that you have to go through. Like Mega Cat has reached out to Guinness. I've reached out to Guinness. It's like on my computer alone, I have 90 voices that I did in that game.
Yeah.
And I know some were cut on the the editing room floor, and I know that they swapped some out to get other people into the game, because listen, when you're one person, sometimes it's like, oh, you know what, that sounds like Pat, let's change that with somebody else. So I know that there's like 2 or 3 other voice actors voicing some of the characters in the game, but I know the world record is like 35 or 34 on it's a PlayStation 2 game, A Dog's Life, and I know I crushed it. And I reach out.
Oh, I remember that game.
Mm-hmm.
That was forever.
Yeah, and I've reached out to Guinness, and no answer. And I filled out forums and told them to contact me. Nothing. And Mega Cat has reached out to them, and nothing. So it's like I'm doing another indie game right now, and I'm doing like 9 or 10 voices in the game, and I'm like, listen, if there's any way that we can add some more voices to this game, because what my goal is now too, I would love to break this record, like this guy's record, the PS2 record, on like as many games as possible. And Guinness is gonna have to at some point acknowledge one of them. It's
all right, anybody watching this video, just start blowing up Guinness and let them know we need to get this done like right now.
It's wild. But I mean, I'm one of those people that's like, I know that I did it. I don't need my flowers and stuff like that. I've always told people before, like, I've never been anyone's first choice for anything, but I'm always your best choice. So it's like that. It's a little disheartening, but at the same time, it's just like, WrestleQuest it's been downloaded over 1 million times on Xbox, PlayStation.
Yeah, that game looked really, really cool. I was probably gonna peek into that here in the next week or two.
Mm-hmm. So much fun.
It looked really cool. It's an RPG too, right?
Yeah, it's an RPG. Think of it, it's like Pokemon and Super Mario RPG with wrestling characters. That's basically like what I would mostly. And the thing is, like, I streamed that game on the Mega Cat Twitch for like a month and a half. Like, to have a video game publisher give you the keys to the castle, so to speak, it was a lot of responsibility. It was a lot of fun. I also I did every male voice in Renfield Bring Your Own Blood. which is the game that's based off of the movie. So I voiced
Oh,
like
nice.
Nicolas Cage is Dracula, and
That's
Nicholas
dope.
Holt is and I do easily over 20 characters in that game too. So it's been fun. The last year and a half has definitely been fun. But again, the Five Nights at Freddy stuff just takes it. Like Macho Man Randy Savage, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, being able to do him, so much fun. Being able to do Dracula, so much fun. But Phone Guy, like it's a game changer to the point where like I did New York Comic Con this year, and all of a sudden people start bringing me Funko to sign, and
Oh yeah.
and I'm like, I've never signed a Funko before, and I'm like, okay. I start signing Funko, and then somebody's like, well, you voiced Macho Man Randy Savage in WrestleQuest, right? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, I have a Macho Man Randy Savage Funko. Would you like to sign? I'm like, yeah, okay. And then somebody's like, would you want to sign my Universal Dracula Funko? I'm like, sure. And then all of a sudden, I'm sitting next to Darren Dunstan, who did like Blaziken, and Munchlax
Oh,
and
that's really cool.
Pokemon,
Yeah.
and he did Maximilian Pegasus, on Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yep.
And I'm just like, you do this like all the time? And he's like, yeah. He's like, welcome to the club. Like, like
Yeah.
you're like a real voice actor now. And it's just like I've been doing the voice acting thing for like 5 or 6 years, but
But now you're seeing like the other sides to it now too and stuff.
yeah, because I
So
mean,
especially at all the cons and
yep,
whatnot.
yep. And it's just like it's so much fun that like Mega Cat has trusted me to be Phone Guy. I mean, because to my recollection, I mean, you would know this better than me. I don't think anyone else has played Phone Guy in a Five Nights at Freddy's game besides
So
me.
the only one that has ever played as Phone Guy is Scott Coffin
Yeah,
himself. He
yeah.
did Phone Guy all the way through and through. So like when I found out that the voice actor changed, I was like, okay, that's gonna be interesting. And then when I heard your voice for it, I'm like, man, he sounds so good. I'm like, you hardly even notice the change. Like you can tell from the tones a little bit, but
Yeah.
you did such an amazing job across the board
I
on there.
tried so hard.
Until New Dad ruined my one of your parts there, and I was really sad. But
Mhm.
I went back and played through, and I heard that whole.
Nice. I tried so hard. The lineage of the game and the importance. I mean, think of it this way. It's like for me, I look at games as almost like therapy in a way. Like
Oh yeah,
after a
100%.
really long day, just sitting back and playing a game like Pokemon for me, because I'm older than
Yep.
you. I'm 41, so like Pokemon.
Hey, I started with Red and Blue too.
Oh, there you go.
Don't worry,
There
don't
you
worry.
go.
I'm in the same. I'm right around the same bracket. So.
Gotcha. So like, I mean, huge impact. But then to like Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas got me through like my first year of teaching. They got me through graduate school, and then my wife is fighting breast cancer, and this year has been really hard. And I just decided on a whim. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna restart Fallout 4. And oh my god, I beat the living crap out of the game, and it was just like every day for like 45 minutes, it was just like this escape that you need to be healthy. And I know that Five Nights at Freddy's for an entire generation has been that to people. And I remember I initially auditioned for Jeff, and I thought I did a good job, and then they asked me if I wanted to be Phone Guy. And I was like, oh my god. Like,
Yeah.
man. I mean, I've done more voiceover in games before. Like, when I played Father Alexander in the Padre and the sequel, like, I did, like, an hour of voiceover in that first game and, like, easily, like, 45 minutes in the second. So, like, I would say my voiceover in Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit is probably around, like, 6.5 minutes. But it's like, when it's incorporated into the game,
Oh yeah, it goes so well with the game.
it's super important. And then the thing is too, like, in preparation to do this, like, again, I've listened to all of Scott's voiceover, and I read Into the Pit, the graphic novel,
Yeah.
and I was just kind of like, but Phone Guy's not in this.
Oh.
So how is this gonna work? And then I was so scared, because it's just like going into all of the threads and the discussion boards and the groups and stuff like that. Like, the Five Nights at Freddy's community is so protective. And listen, I love it, but I'm just like, oh my god, am I gonna be able to like live after this? Like if Am I gonna get like bum rushed online like you're not our phone guy and blah 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 blah? And I was just so petrified, and I'm just like, it just made me want to take it so much. I mean, I take all of my roles super serious, but it's just like I want.
Yeah, but this one is just such a big franchise.
Yeah.
The fan base is the fan base is a very caring fan base
Yes,
when it comes
yes.
to the authenticity of the franchise,
Yep.
the lore of the franchise, and stuff
Mhm.
like that, and stuff like that. But anybody I've ever talked to that's in love with the series has been such like kind, wholesome people and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And they just enjoy that so many people have a common interest in it, and they're basically just trying to decipher everything when it comes to that.
Yep.
But if you look at it as a whole, there's not a ton of voices in it. So
Uh-huh.
you being incorporated into it, like it's I mean, there's not many voices out there.
Yeah.
So you being able to do this was just like a huge splash into it, and how well you portrayed Phone Guy into it and made it so authentic and stuff
Thank
like
you.
that. I mean, it's no wonder everyone like basically just fell in love with the character for that.
It's so
Because
funny.
it
too,
really
because,
does sound like it.
Thank you. It's so funny though too because it's like after the game came out, I was on some Reddit threads, and somebody thought it was Matthew Lillard,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, that's so funny because it's like I was doing like a career day for my daughter's school like 2 years ago, and the guy was like, you know, you look a lot like Matthew Lillard, and I'm like, and this is before the movie, and I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I don't think so. You know, I didn't have a hat on. I had my, my hair down and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, you remind me a lot of Matthew Lillard," you know. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then the movie comes out, and Matthew Lillard's in it, and
I thought he was a fantastic choice for that role.
I think so too. He was great.
I
I
cannot
love the
wait
movie.
for the second one.
Absolutely. But when they thought that Matthew Lillard did it, and then then people started looking me up, and then I just started getting messages from people on Instagram, on Facebook, and my TikTok was kind of dormant. I wasn't using it. And then I was doing the signing for New York Comic Con, and the guy that got me the booth at my boot spot at New York Comic Con, Omar from Infinite Collectibles, he's amazing. His Instagram, his TikTok page is hilarious. I did a TikTok with him like 3 weeks ago, and it blew up. It got like 240,000 views.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I tried to bring in a Moonlight Freddy, and he didn't want to buy it. It was so funny. We had fun with it. It's a lot of fun. But he was like, dude, you need to get on TikTok and start like sharing your voiceover spots for the game.
Yeah.
He goes, you need to do that. People need to know. He's like, you're too humble about like what you've done. You need to just get out there. And then I went into a couple of really big Five Nights at Freddy's groups on Facebook, and I just announced myself. And it was just like floodgates open, and I started reposting people's stuff and reaching out to people like you and a whole bunch of other people just to like say, like, I want to talk about, who I am and what I do, because so many people are like, oh, it's Scott's just using another name, and oh, it's like.
Well, if you didn't do such a great job at the voice, I mean, come on.
Thank you. Thank you. It meant a lot, like I said, because again, totally petrified. Like, I did not want to let the fan base down at all. Like, I just I wanted to add something like slightly different. Like, there's definitely like you can kind of see like an emotional struggle with this phone guy. Like, you kind of get the feeling that he knows like what you're like what's about, like, what you're dealing with and stuff like that. And like I love the line when it's just like, oh, you ever feel like you look into a cupcake and you see eyes and stuff like that. Like, you can see like his almost like descent into madness. And
the realization of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Pizzerias and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I mean, I don't know how many of the books you read, but I mean, these stories start getting gruesome.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Into the Pit itself, I mean, if you read it word for word, I mean, it's a scary.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
played all the games and stuff like that too, except the VR, just I had the legitimate headset for it.
Mhm.
But like going from the games to the novels is a totally different run at it.
Yeah.
And it's so intriguing. The stories are crazy. The amount of Easter eggs they had in this game were absolutely
Definitely
it was really cool.
tender love and care. Like, and that's the thing though too. I told somebody, I was on a podcast last week, and I said I don't think I've done VO in a bad game, which I think is true. But the Mega Cat stuff that I've done, like World Championship Boxing Manager, WrestleQuest, I've done a ton of trailers for them because they love the "In a world, one man, one tortilla." Like, they love that dark voice. I do that all the time for them. but the amount of tender love and care that they put into all of their stuff it's one of the reasons why I enjoy working with them so much. So again,
Oh, I clearly seen it with Into the Pit. I
thank
mean,
you.
it was just such an amazing adaptation.
It's the
game,
highest
too.
rated Five Nights at Freddy's game ever, you know. So
It
it's just
really
like,
is. I mean, I was skeptical at first. I'm like, wow, they really changed it up. It's not like the traditional, like you're in the office, you gotta keep everything out and stuff like that, and you
Mhm.
actually play through a story, and just the way it was just so good. It was
Yeah.
just, it became one of my, but definitely one of my favorites because FNAF 2 is always my like personal favorite. It was the first one I ever played.
Mhm.
Sat there on my phone trying to beat 20 modes. Still haven't beat it to this day.
Mhm.
But I mean, it's just such a great game, and I have no idea if you have information on it or not. I'm really hoping they put out a second one, though.
I would love to.
One of the other books.
Yeah. I mean, my hope is like I would love to continue working as phone guy, but the thing is, like, I mean, you never know. You never know what they could do. And I mean, my whole thing is like I would love to be if another developer does a Five Nights game, I would love to be phone guy in that game too. You know, because I know I'm pretty sure that they're like kind of like, you know, branching out, the whole series is like branching out and stuff like that.
Or maybe get like one of the animatronic voices because there are
Something.
some that talk in the series. So.
I would love to. You know, I had such a good time, and like I said, I went from being like absolutely petrified, I would say mid-August, beginning of September, with the realization that like, oh my god, this is coming out, to by the end of September being really excited, and then by October, and then like pretty much every day since Comic-Con, I've signed a Funko. It's crazy. You know,
That's really awesome.
yeah, it's just been nuts. Like I had somebody the other day send me 4 Into the Pit shirts, and they're like, "Can you sign these?" And I'm like, "Sure." You know, like,
Yeah.
it's been. I don't like. I legitimately don't want it to stop, just for the fact of like, it introduces people to the other stuff that I'm doing, too.
Oh, for sure.
I sold a whole bunch of the Minds Behind the Games books, and like people are getting interested in my comics and stuff, and it's just like I work so hard on all of this stuff that it's just like I don't want like the ride to end. I feel like it just started.
I mean, honestly, just this game alone, it's definitely going to be a big step forward. It's many other things.
Thank you.
Quite sure.
Thank you. I would love for the game too to get a physical release. My fingers are crossed for that. I don't have any more details on that, but it's just like that's the thing too. I've done probably like 25 trailers, and I've done probably like I've done voiceover in like a dozen games, from, you know, the Switch and Xbox and PlayStation, the Atari VCS and stuff like that, but it's just like I have yet to be able to go into a GameStop and physically buy one of the games that I've worked on, and I would love for Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit to be like that game. So
That would be awesome.
Mhm.
That would definitely be really, really awesome. But yeah, I was looking at other games too. The Padre, Relentless Rex, and stuff like that were some of the other games I
Yeah.
tracked down.
Mhm.
So, but no,
Yeah.
that's really awesome. I mean, your career is just absolutely astounding, especially how far you've branched out in like different fields and stuff like that. So.
It's just because I have a big mouth. It's like I got hired as a dialogue editor on the Padre because what had happened was I interviewed the team for Review Fix, and then the article got really good traffic, and then they were like, "Do you want to play the game?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I start playing the game, and ironically, it's a lot like Into the Pit. It's a point and click based,
Yeah.
action mystery game, and I loved it because I love Maniac Mansion, Day of the Tentacle. I love those games, and but it's text. All these games are text heavy. So like Megacat Studios has Zach Manco, who is an amazing writer, and he's the head of creative there. So it's just like you're not gonna find like silly, stupid like text mistakes in Into the Pit. But in Padre, it was like right away. There was tons of grammar mistakes, and I've taught English and journalism for 18 years. So I said, guys, you need somebody to edit this bad.
Yeah.
And they were like, do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, if you want to pay me, I'll do it. And they said yes, and I edited everything in one day. I was just like, give me everything, I will edit it in one day. I read through all of the story and gave it back to them. And then they're like, it was on Steam early access at that point. And they were like, reboot your Steam in like 3 hours. I'm like, okay. So 3 hours comes, I restart my Steam and stuff like that, and then I go to the credits, and it's like dialogue editor Patrick Hickey Jr. So I'm just like, I just got my first credit in a video game. This is awesome. So then I thought I was done with them. They paid me. I thought I was done with them, and then a couple of weeks later, they go, "We have more dialogue for you." So I'm like, "Okay, pay me again." I do it. Then they want to go to Kickstarter. They're like, "We want you to edit the Kickstarter." I'm like, "Okay, cool, I'll do that." Right before the Kickstarter is about to start, these guys are from Romania, so they sound like the Count from Sesame Street. That's basically the way that they sound, and I'll never forget the Facebook audio. It's like, "Oh, Patrick, we're fucked. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "The voice actor left, the guy that was supposed to play the Padre."
Yeah.
And I was like, "That's not a problem." And they're like, "Why?" And I had never done voiceover at that point, but I was like, "It's not a problem." And they're like, "Why?" I was like, I know a ton of people in video games. I was like, but since I've edited all of the dialogue in this game, I really have this idea of the way this character is supposed to sound. And
I got this. Don't worry.
Yeah, because the thing is, the guy that was playing the Padre at that point, he sounded like Russell Brand. So it's just like, imagine a Catholic priest stuck in a mansion with zombies, and it's like, "Whoa, man, I'm like running after zombies, you know? It's like, whoa!" And it was like, as my daughter would say, it's cringe, you know?
Yep.
And I did not take the game seriously because of that, but I wanted to get paid, and the game played well enough, but the voice acting was just terrible. And I don't even know his name. I'm sorry, bro. But he left. And I just knew the game had to have like this brooding protagonist. So I've always been good at that. In a world, one man, one tortilla. But it's like, couldn't do that because people would be laughing the entire time. And for some reason, they wanted the Padre. Like, you hear the Padre, you think of like a Hispanic priest, you know? So I was going to give them something very like Benicio del Toro or something like that. But they wanted to keep the English accent. So I probably came across this dark voice. My name is Alexander, and I am the portrait. And they were like, "Yo!" And I recorded everything that one day, and they did the same thing. They were like, restart your Steam," and I did, and they implemented all of the audio that day, and I was a main character in a video game. It was nuts. And then I just started getting messages from people. "Can you do my trailer? Can you do this? Can you do that?" And then the MegaCat people reached out to me because I know James, the CEO of MegaCat, for a long time. We've spoken about business. We've spoken about all sorts of tons of cool stuff. Like when he started his company, I reached out to him, and I've helped him, and he's helped me. I love him. Super nice guy, hard worker, high standards. And he was like, "Look at you, so you do voiceover now?" And I'm like, "Kinda." And he was just like, "Can you do a good Macho Man?" And I was like, "Ooh, yeah." And he's like, "Yep." And then that was 3.5 years of my life, to the point where, like, if I go upstairs into my house and my wife hears me, she'll be like, "Please don't do that again." Because it was just like, for 3.5 years, I was like, "Oh yeah, let me tell you something, brother. Yeah." And it was just...
I used to do Rick Sanchez a lot from Rick and Morty.
Love it.
And my fiance has a no-go.
Mm-hmm.
She's like...
So the money was great. Like, they paid me well, and like they took me to PAX East 2 years in a row, and I got to do a panel on the history of wrestling video games with the team. And then we went to PAX West. They took me to Ric Flair's last match in Tennessee. We went to MagFest. We won Best Game in MagFest. Like, I had so much fun with those guys. So yeah. But it all started because I have a big mouth, and it was just like, "Yeah, don't worry about like not having a voice actor. I could figure that out." And and then the rest is history. That was like 2016. 2000. Yeah, that was like the end of 2016. That was while I was writing The Minds Behind the Games, the first book. Nuts.
Time flies real fast.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's super awesome. And I saw you doing gaming history videos with MegaCat Studios too.
Yeah, that
a couple of those videos.
They love me, so it was just like, how could we keep Patrick busy? and I did maybe like 4 or 5 of them, and I had a lot of fun with them. But it all comes down to like, are people like actually watching them, and the viewership like wasn't great, and then they were like, oh, we're in actuality the viewership wasn't great, but they weren't promoting them a ton, and then it was just like WrestleQuest just got into like full on production, and it's just like, do we want to take up like 2 hours of Patrick's week with this, or do we want him to do stuff for WrestleQuest? So
Yeah.
they were like, yeah, we want you to do stuff for WrestleQuest.
It just got prioritized.
Yeah,
Stuff
I was like,
that.
okay, no problem. So
Oh, for sure. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've gotten through there. You've interviewed what was it? NHL players too. I think I
Tons.
saw at one point too.
Yeah, tons. I just wrote a book on pro hockey. I got it right here actually. Aces over Brooklyn. You could probably kill a small child with this book. Pretty big.
It's not the yellow books, so
So my initial like real life goals was to be a sports writer, and I covered minor league baseball for like 4 years, and I crushed it, and I wrote for a whole bunch of different places, and I got to interview so many of my favorite baseball players of all time. And then it's basically like then I was like, well, then I want to cover hockey, and I did a ton of hockey stuff at NBC. And then I wrote for the Hockey Writers for like 3 years. I wrote for New York Sports Scene magazine for a couple of years, and then I wanted to really do a lot of pro wrestling stuff, and I've interviewed easily over 100 pro wrestlers. I've done ring announcing, so it's just like I just feel like I try and do these things to try and make 13-14-year-old Patrick as happy as possible. Like I just look at so many people my age, and men have this habit of when they get in their 40s to be coulda, shoulda, woulda, I shoulda did this, I shoulda did that, and it's like I joke around with people all the time. One of my best friends, I tell her all the time, like, if I die like right now, I'm okay. And she's like, stop it, don't say that. I'm like, I've done a ton of cool stuff. Like, I'm totally okay with like what I leave behind, you know. But obviously, like, I want to live for another 50-60 years if I can.
No, for sure. But your accomplishments have already added up to a sum to where you're comfortable with that too. But
yeah,
obviously want more.
Absolutely. I just want to get to the point where, like, I mean, I've done all this cool stuff, but it's just like I still have to hustle really hard to like make ends meet and stuff like that. I am absolutely positively like not rich, and you know, my wife is battling cancer and she's working, and like we have 2 kids, and we're working as hard as we can. Like, I don't own a house, so that's like a goal for me. Like I would love to get to the point where like all of these accomplishments like help me pay the bills a little bit better, but I'm always the coolest person at the party, you know. But I'd love for that to like translate into making it easier to support my family. That's why like the Five Nights at Freddy stuff has been so cool, because people have just reached out to me, and it's nuts too, man. I know we're live, and I know this is being recorded, and I'm not going to say between me and you, like, this is like for the record. Like, I just see how, you know, a lot of personalities in entertainment just charge like so much for like their signature on a Funko or on a print and things like that. And I've tried over the past like 3 weeks to like just make my, like, if somebody wants like a signed Funko for me, I just try and make it as like cost effective as possible, to the point where like it's worth my time, but then also too, like, I can't like justifiably, like, I've seen people charge people at like New York Comic Con like $150.
Oh, I've seen it at MegaCon. I live in Florida, and I've seen it up to I think 700.
Yeah, and it's
was
like,
the worst one I've seen. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I can't do that. You know, it's just like I'm doing a signing December 1st, and I'm doing a signing December 8th at like one collectible store in Staten Island, the Collector's Cave, and then another one at Infinite Collectibles. It's a really big Funko store. It's a great Funko shop, and I mean, I'm charging $50. You know, just because I want people to take it home, and not just, and that's just the thing though too, because some of these people, they'll be like, oh, I'll sign it for $50, and then they don't leave a quote. So it's like, for $50, you give me your Funko for $50, I write whatever you want me to write on it, and I sign it, and you have something that is like completely like yours, one of a kind. Like, because I want to create like memories with people, you know, just like,
oh, for sure.
So
it's more personable rather than business related.
Absolutely. You know, and it's like obviously like I have to make money because I have to support my family, but it's just like I can do that and then still not like hurt you. And then the thing is too, it's just like you telling me like how you felt about my voiceover work and stuff like that, and that stuff means like the world to me. You know, so it's just like if that's like the way that I can like repay the Five Nights at Freddy's community by like just giving them an opportunity to like, you know, have like one of a kind items, like I'm totally down for that. You know, it's just like there's a difference between like, you know, supporting yourself and then just completely like taking advantage of people, and it's just like I just don't want to do that.
No, for sure. Totally understand there. And again, like I was saying earlier too, you're trying to be personable with your fan base on top of that. Have actual legitimate connections rather than just being a face or just being a voice or just being stagnant, like with your fan base and stuff like that. Because after a while, it wears down on people like that. They want somebody to connect with and stuff like that. And I definitely see, I mean, even through this whole video and stuff like that, and me talking to you here, I mean, extremely personable, super nice guy, ton of accomplishments, and I really do hope like all your dreams and accomplishments start bearing the fruits that you've been trying to sow. It's been super fun chatting up with you and stuff too. I've gone through my questions, and I thank you for more than 5 minutes. I know that was the original agreement.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic.
Thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Patrick Hickey Jr. I sure did. It was a lot of fun, honestly. Would love to do it again, and hopefully we can get some more guest stars to jump on for another interview. If you need any of his information, just go check the description below. Also comment down there too, please, because I would love to hear your thoughts on there. Smash that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Enjoyed the content. So, but thank you again so much for watching, your time and your support. And as always, I hope you enjoy the rest of your night, evening, afternoon, or morning, depending on when you're watching this. We'll see you in the next video later, folks. Have a great rest of your night.